got into working with families that lost their teens to opioid addiction. And now opioids strong, but fentanyl is about 80% of the deaths that we're seeing. And with fentanyl, all it takes is one little grain and it can kill. A lot of these teens, especially after COVID, a lot of depression, girls' suicide rate went up by 50%. Boys' suicide rate went up, I think, like 20 or 30%. But what they're doing is they're called press pills, and they're going on Snapchat. They're getting pills they think are pharmaceutical pills, but they've got fentanyl in them, and they are dying immediately. So obviously, this is something that I'd love to see legislation for stronger punishment on one side.
Right.
But what I'm doing right now.
All right. Hello and welcome again to another episode of Sacktown Talks. Today, we're glad to be joined by Assemblywoman Laurie Davies. Laurie, thanks for joining us. How's it going?
It's going good. Obviously, we're getting near the end. And so a lot of committees and a lot of bills coming forth.
Yeah, kind of going through the committees. It's amazing how many bills each committee's going. It seems like everyone's going to have like a marathon session next week or the next 2 weeks. So
it's actually mind-boggling when I look at how many bills get passed. I really don't think that we need that much regulation.
Yeah, on one hand, but a lot of us lobbyists need jobs to do something, right?
That's true. Good point.
We could repeal some, I guess. We could look at that too. So you got elected in 2020. Kind of at a time when a lot of us didn't get meet you or kind of hear your story. So kind of, can you give us a little background info on you and how your journey here to Sacramento?
Absolutely. Born in Wisconsin. And when I graduated from high school, I bought myself, if you ever heard of a Cutlass Supreme, and packed up and headed to California, put myself through school at Long Beach State while waitressing at night. And when I graduated, I ended up getting a job in hospitality at the Ritz-Carlton, which brought me down to Orange County from there. Started my own business, which is an event company. And then I started getting very interested in politics. It was really when Gray Davis was going to be recalled. Oh. And so I got involved with politics and realizing, some of the bad things that were happening up here, especially taking local control away. And so I had a few people come to me saying, we'd like you to run for city council. So I ran for Laguna Niguel City Council in 2011. So won in 2012, served as mayor in 2015, and then ran again, served as mayor in 2019, and then was asked to go ahead and run for assembly, the 73rd district, which is South Orange County, and that goes from the border of Orange County and San Diego, so San Clemente, all the way up. You've got San Juan, Dana Point, Laguna Niguel, where I live, Mission Viejo, Rancho Santa Margarita, Laguna Hills, and kind of everything in between. And here I am. Right.
Really rough area you represent. How do you do it?
I feel very blessed. It really is a beautiful area. But I tell people that, we are, I think, 5 out of the 8 cities, we're always in the top 10 safest cities in California. And it's about leadership. Our cities have really great leadership. They listen to the residents. Their priorities are public safety, which I think is, obviously number one and should be number one for all of us.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting, your background, a waitress, event planning business, those were just hit so hard during COVID. Kind of, how did that experience help you kind of come up here and kind of shape things for businesses and people who kind of needed relief and needed kind of advice and kind of how to deal with COVID?
Well, I can tell you, obviously, the hospitality industry really got hit. My business doing events shut down. So I basically lost about a year and a half. My husband works for the restaurants, so he was out as well. And it was hard for a lot of people, especially not being able to work, because I think we all want to feel like we're effective.
Right.
So I think that was a tough part. But coming up here, it was just looking at the different laws and making sure that our small businesses were taken care of. 80% of our businesses in this state are small businesses, mom and pop shops. So trying to make sure that, they were able to get some type of stimulus, something to make sure that they could stay open. We lost about 40% of our businesses during COVID, which is horrific.
Right.
And that's a lot of income. So trying to find jobs for those employees as well, making sure that they were taken care of.
Mm-hmm. And it's kind of a weird time too, where businesses that are operating are having trouble hiring people. Kind of, what are you seeing or experiencing kind of like, filling these vacancies and finding people who want to work?
That's definitely one of the biggest difficulties you're finding at this point now, being kind of post-COVID. And it's tough. I mean, minimum wages are up there. They're offering good money plus gratuity. But there's a lot of people, I think, that were able to hang on to the stimulus money, some that perhaps didn't pay rent and had that sitting there as well. And you're looking at these restaurants that are closed maybe 2 or 3 days a week. They're closing up at 8 instead of 10 because they don't have the staff. And I'm hoping that, they're really they're giving you bonuses to go and become a server or a bartender or work at a hotel, but you can still feel it. You can go to certain hotels and they just don't have the services. Room service is still like not 24/7, things like that.
So like obviously like 2020, not many weddings happened. Maybe some happened in 2021. Kind of what are you seeing kind of in your event planning business? Is it like every day is booked? Every weekend's booked? Like how far out, are weddings in Orange County now?
Well, I can tell you that it's extremely busy. I probably had at least 15 to 20 weddings that got postponed. So I wasn't expecting to do them when I was up here, but I was kind of juggling a little bit there. So when I had, I was, doing legislation during the day, and at night I was doing Zoom meetings with my clients, and then I'd come home on the weekends and do the events. So it was kind of a full-time job. But right now, it's nonstop. It's Monday through Sunday, and I had the opportunity because I had a lot of couples that literally wanted to still get married. It was important to them those dates. So I've been ordained for 15, 16 years. So I was able to actually go to their backyards with their immediate family and actually, do the ceremony for them.
Right.
So that at least they had that. And then we just did the receptions later. I mean, I had one couple that had 2 babies before we even finished. We finally got the reception done.
Wow. So like, wedding planning is very popular. You see TV shows about it. The Bridezillas, kind of how is it dealing with these brides and how can you compare it up here to Sacramento?
I always told people when when I first got started into politics, they're like, "Can you handle it?" I'm like, "Do you know what I do?"
Right.
Because every now and then you got to deal with a lot of emotion. You've got to deal with moms and dads and brides and grooms, and if you can do that, you can do pretty much anything because that is their most important day of their life at that time in their life, and the buck stops here. So this is nothing.
Yeah, exactly. There's nothing more pressure.
And you learn to compromise and you learn to get along because hospitality. It's consider it done. That's usually what I say, even if it's like kind of out there, but it's like absolutely work across the aisle, work with everyone to make sure that we can produce good bills, we can produce a good event.
Right. It's kind of interesting. You came in 2020, where you couldn't really talk to other people. You couldn't go around. Kind of how has it been, getting to know your fellow colleagues here in Sacramento since you've been elected?
Like I said, the first year was tough because nothing was open. There weren't restaurants or anything like that. So we did have an opportunity with, there were 5 of us in the Republican Party that were freshmen. And so we all stayed at the same hotel. So I'd have them come up to my room like on a Monday night, and we just we talked. We had an opportunity to talk about what's going on, and then little by little I got to meet my fellow Republicans, and then eventually with the Democrats when we started going into committees. So but it was definitely a different situation. I mean, when it came to being sworn in, normally it's a it's a big event and everything, and we were sworn in at the arena, and no one was allowed to come. So it was by Zoom. My husband had to watch by Zoom. So I said, that's all right. I'm just going to wait in 2022, and then hopefully we'll have a regular ceremony, a regular swearing.
Right. And so, elected in 2020, and then now we've had redistricting. I guess, how has your district changed, and, how have you adapted to that?
Certainly. Right now, I'm in South Orange County is my district. The new district is the 74th. And so I have 4 cities, Laguna Niguel, San Juan Capistrano, Dana Point, and San Clemente in Orange County. And then I go into Camp Pendleton, into northern San Diego, Vista, and Oceanside. So my new territory is 55% new. And so it's really going to be about, getting my face out there, working on events, really understanding the new district and what their needs are. And they're bigger cities. Orange County, the average cities that I'm in right now is really around 60,000, and you've got Oceanside, I think, like 185,000. Vista's like around 100,000. So they have different concerns, different issues. But what I'm looking forward to is I love to solve problems.
Right.
Going in there, working with the city council members that I've met, I'm working with the supervisor, and dealing with homelessness that they have. We've got you learn certain things. So we've got things that we've worked with, different tools in Orange County to see what they have, and if I can bring that over, and vice versa. So it gives me an opportunity to actually put two counties together and really brainstorm and hopefully be able to do the same thing and same programs, something that usually isn't done across two different counties, but why not?
Right. What's so interesting is everyone's from a different part of the state and everyone has their own perspective, their own background, and kind of that's how, the sausage gets made up here. How have you kind of adapted to coming from, Orange County to up here, very conservative, kind of where you're from up here, dealing with kind of this Democratic supermajority, and try to get things done for your district?
Well, it's a good question. Do you know what? But again, I came up here and I've really been working across the aisle. My first year as a freshman, I got 6 out of my 6 bills signed into law.
Nice.
But what I did is, again, I worked across the aisle. I had Democrats co-author. There were good bills, good common sense bills. And there were good bills that I could co-author of theirs as well that, are public safety. And that's probably one of my biggest ones. Public safety, dealing with domestic violence, dealing with a drug addiction. So I'm very happy that right now, this year, I've got 9 out of 9 bills that sailed through the Assembly, and a few of them are already on the Senate floor. And
Wow,
hopefully
nice.
the rest will get in there. So again, good bills, and always happy to talk about them.
Yeah. Like one of the things you talked about is public safety. And, the thing that we keep seeing is fentanyl overdose and kind of fentanyl in the communities. Kind of what are you working on right now in regards to fentanyl and getting that off the streets?
Sure. I got into working with families that lost their teens to opioid addiction. And now opioids strong, but fentanyl is about 80% of the deaths that we're seeing. And with fentanyl, all it takes is one little grain and it can kill. A lot of these teens, especially after COVID, a lot of depression, girls' suicide rate went up by 50%. Boys' suicide rate went up, I think, like 20 or 30%. But what they're doing is they're called press pills, and they're going on Snapchat. They're getting pills they think are pharmaceutical pills, but they've got fentanyl in them, and they are dying immediately. So obviously, this is something that I'd love to see legislation for stronger punishment on one side.
Right.
But what I'm doing right now is kind of prevention. And last year, I was able to push a bill through that was about Narcan. And Narcan, naloxone, is a substance that basically, if someone is overdosing, it can be administered into the nose like a spray, and it reverses what's going on. And It can actually bring them back to life. And it's used quite a bit. I think it was actually saved about 76,000 teens' lives when parents were able to get it. So that made it was mandatory in treatment centers, because unfortunately there's still a lot of overdosing in treatment centers. And then I have the fentanyl bill this year. I'm working with the DA of San Diego on it. And I was, this one really was important, because right now there's some really good testing tools to see if fentanyl or ketamine, which is a date rape drug, is in the pill or in the liquid, but it's under the category of paraphernalia. And because of that, it can't be sold over the counter. So what this would do is remove it from that category so it can be sold. And literally, you find a pill in your kid's room or at school, you can take a drop of this liquid and put it on the pill, and it'll turn a certain color if there's fentanyl in it. And then with the date rape, the ketamine, there's a straw you can put into a drink, and it'll turn a certain color if there's ketamine in it. So, I mean, for me, you see a lot of sad reports on rape with the college students, college women, teen girls. So this is something that I would love to see implemented where bars, if maybe they get a certain rebate, or they get, we could take them to bars and they could say, if you like one of these straws, or, you can take straws with you. It's sad that you have to do it, but these are preventions, and I know that'll save a lot of lives. And that's, to me, between the Narcan and this bill, that's what it's all about, is hopefully preventing death.
Wait, so you can take a straw and you can put it in your drink, and the straw will change a certain color
If there's ketamine in it.
Wow, that's
Yes.
amazing.
And that's just it. These are tools that have been out there, but they weren't able to be sold. And so that's kind of my next things. We get this out there, and then working with restaurants and bars, college, school, universities,
Right.
things like that, to have all of this.
Wow, that's amazing. The interesting thing about fentanyl is no one's going out trying to take fentanyl. It's, added to other drugs, whether it be pain pills or Adderall or, whatever people are buying. I guess, has there been any look into, where's this coming from? Like who's producing it? Like where's
It's coming across the border. So obviously, that's one of the reasons why we need to have secure borders, because majority of our toxic drugs like that, and fentanyl isn't a drug; it's a poison, and I think it needs to be treated like a poison, especially when we're looking at penalties for selling it, especially if somebody dies.
Yeah, it's kind of such a weird transition we've had where we've been fighting drugs forever, but this is actually a drug that is really harmful, and people aren't meaning to take it. So
yeah, it's because it's one pill will kill.
That's amazing. So kind of working with the district attorney's office, kind of what are some of the solutions to kind of help get this off the streets?
Well, I think, as they would say, one of the main ones is to we got to secure the border. I mean, that's where this is coming from. And then two, we have to have stronger punishment. Right now, it's if you can prove that there was fentanyl in the pill. If I was a dealer and I could prove that there was fentanyl in there, and it killed somebody, then there's a penalty. But it's just not being pushed by the Democrats up here. We have so many fentanyl bills and punishment, but they don't want to put anybody behind bars, no matter what the incident is. And this is killing. This is killing kids right and left. It's killing adults. I sit there and listen to these parents, and they're like, it's a poison, and these people need to be accountable. If we could start making them accountable, if somebody is caught dealing something with fentanyl, whether they live or die, they need to do time. And I think if they knew that what the punishment was, especially if there's a death, they may think twice about realizing, maybe I want to know what's in this pill, because they can't use ignorance. You know what? If you're dealing, it's illegal. If you're doing that right now, you know what? There's got to be punishment. That's how it's going to stop, is if we got to get tough on crime.
And you're just coming off re-election, right? You've been talking to voters. Kind of what's the top concern on the voters' mind in your district right now?
Obviously, cost of living right now. It's, making a decision. It used to be making a decision, how to get food on the table. Now with gas going, we're at $6 something a gallon, which is just horrendous. People are like, well, I'm skipping a meal so I can put gas in the car so I can go to work.
Right.
And we shouldn't have to be at this point. And we have, we've been pushing the gas tax right now. Right now, California pays the highest gas taxes through the nation. It's like a total of, if you look at all the taxes, it's like $1.50 something, but just alone in California, it's 53 cents. And so the Republicans went up January and said, let's just do a gas tax relief for 6 months. It would be about $9 billion to be able to do that. We have a $98 billion surplus right now. And so there's really no excuses, not to mention, it would sunset, the gas tax would come back. So we were going to take that away. And those taxes, that surplus is yours and mine. It didn't just show up. It's like, when you have a surplus that more taxes were put on you the year before.
Right.
And obviously there's still some money left from the federal grants and that. But all in all, we've got to do something. And we all would have saved hundreds of dollars if we would have implemented this over 100 days ago. And I think gas was at like maybe $4.30 when we started, and now it's six. I just paid $6.55 on Saturday. So people can't afford to even go to work anymore, and there's really no excuse. We've got like 1,000 permits right now to drill, and they've been sitting there, but they're not being taken up. So we need to really look at where our money is, and it's common sense. We have to make sure that we're not being taken advantage of at the pump.
That's one of the interesting things today. President Biden just announced that he's asking Congress to suspend the federal gas tax. But what's being done? What are the discussions going on right now? I know you guys are in budget talks. The governor's proposed $400 per car. The Assembly and Senate have proposed something far lower. Kind of what are you hearing right now and on the gas tax and taxpayer relief?
Well, sadly, not much. Again, we keep putting this up. We've had conferences. We've tried to get it on the floor, I think, 3 or 4 times to vote on this gas tax relief with the 53 cents per gallon taken off. And they keep outnumbering us and voting not to even hear it. So it can't be on there because they don't want to be accountable for their vote. And they'll use the reasoning of, it's going to take in from infrastructure. We won't have money for infrastructure if we do this, which is not true. This would come out of the surplus. It would not come out of the infrastructure budget. So people need to understand the facts, because there's no reason why we can't do this. And we could do it immediately. We could go ahead and change it for tomorrow. And when you're talking about rebates, we all know how well we did with the EDD, $30 billion in fraud. So we're going to send out more checks, for $300 to $400, which is maybe we'll get somebody through a week nowadays, and or a month when it comes to gas. But all in all, it's waste. You've got administration costs. You've got lots of fraud. Again, and it's like going, what? And how good is that going to be if we decide to do that in October and November? Californians need tax relief now, not in a month, not in 2 months. They needed it come January. It's bad policy, and they're not putting Californians first.
Yeah. Obviously, your district is very beautiful, right? You got a lot of beaches, a lot of things to be proud of out there. Kind of what are some of the things you're looking at in the state budget that might help your district right now?
Well, they've got money for environmental procedures and things like that. I'm disappointed in the budget because there's nothing in regards to wildfires. And I don't know if you know that Laguna where I live, just had that huge fire about 3 weeks ago. So the fact is we definitely need to be able to have money. We need to make sure that, our areas are clean. And I think we've only, maybe mitigated like 12,000 acres, something like that, when we have so much more. So I'd like to see the money go there. We know wildfires are going to be year round.
Right.
And I was working with getting a grant to our OCFA, which is our fire authority, Orange County, because they need equipment that they normally would lease just for a few months out of the year because that's when the season was.
Right.
Now it's year round. So we're hoping that that would be considered in the budget. I can tell you I had a bill, which was we had that big Orange County spill about a year and a half ago in Huntington Beach. And what was really interesting is federal waters, there's a law that if a vessel thinks or knows they hit a pipeline, that they need to report it within 24 hours. If not, there's a pretty strong fine. State doesn't have that. So I actually had legislation basically saying, listen, if you're in state waters and you're a vessel and you hit a pipeline or you think you do, you've got to do the same thing. You've got to report it so that way we can get to Cal EOS, and we can get it to the right agencies to make sure that it gets fixed or at least looked at. And I don't know if a lot of people realize, but the oil spill we had, that pipeline was damaged a year before it actually leaked.
Wow.
And so if we would have had something like this, and it came into the waters, it came into state waters. State waters is about 3 miles out. So I'm hoping that will go through. It's a common sense bill that, will definitely help.
Yeah, and I guess another important issue in your area is water. I guess, the whole state. And something that's kind of been, I guess, contentious in that area is you live right next to the ocean, right? You have a lot of water right there. Desalination seems to make sense, but it's quite controversial. Can you kind of talk to us about that and kind of
sure. Well,
what you thought about that?
Obviously, in Huntington Beach, they had the Poseidon, which was desalination. And the Coastal Commission, they basically shut it down. And so that was one opportunity that we had, and they had put about $100 million into it already. Oh. So it was really sad to see that go. And, to me, it's like, let's talk about water. We had a drought about 10 years ago. So we passed a water bond. That money was supposed to go for storage and reservoirs. And guess what? None of it is done. So where did that money go? That's your money, my money, and we shouldn't even be having this conversation. So to me, I would like to see an audit on this bond and where the money has gone and why hasn't it been used the way it was supposed to. Again, we end up taking the brunt because of just too much bureaucracy and nobody follows where the money goes anymore. It's like they pass it. And so I would love to see 2022, 23 be the year of the audit.
And that's what's, I guess, so cool right now is that you guys get to stay for 10, 12 years and you can follow up on these issues and kind of keep an eye on it. Can you just kind of like the audit, like how much of what you do is kind of regulatory oversight, kind of making sure that, these agencies are doing what they're supposed to do?
I'm making a 0 right now with my hand, but not much. And that's just it. We go ahead and the governor goes ahead and funds new programs. Last year, again, trying to get out of COVID, he funded 400 new programs. Again, we've got like 300 new programs. These are programs that we have to, usually keep having to fund every year. So he's not cutting it. And to me, we should be taking some large categories such as water, wildfires, of homelessness, where we keep seeing all of our money going, billions of dollars, and yet the crisis gets higher and higher. Where is the money going? Follow the money. And I'll tell you, if we actually could do that and say, all right, no more programs for this next year. Again, let's look at it, let's audit it, and then let's go ahead and things that are working, fantastic. Things that could be tweaked a little bit, but seem like they're making a difference, great. Those that have really horrible results, they go. We could probably have a budget of about $150 billion instead of $300 billion.
Wow. It's amazing. It's that big.
Yeah.
I remember when it was, much, much smaller.
And then you think about the surplus,
right.
None of it's going to unfunded liability. And I mean, that's enough to take us out, especially when we get into recession.
Mm-hmm. Something we've heard about for 5-6 years now, housing. Obviously, a lot of people want to live in your district. They'd love to be able to afford a house there. Can you talk to us about housing in your district? And, is there any, hope on your views on housing and kind of how do we build more of it?
Well, I completely believe that we need to have more housing, but we need to do housing development with common sense. And one thing you see up here is one size fits all. And that is the problem, because when somebody has something that maybe needs to be worked in theirs, take San Francisco or LA, completely different demographics and size. When you look at Orange County or other smaller counties with smaller cities, it doesn't work. What works in San Francisco, high rises, doesn't work in our area, especially in my district. We're master plan cities, most of us. So they've already been planned out. We're also celebrating like our 30th anniversary, 31 anniversary. So we're not old. We don't have old warehouses or old abandoned buildings that we can tear down and go ahead and put housing. We're developed out. And then you look at the RENA numbers, which is the numbers that the state comes up, they do the population, and they say, all right, each county, you have to build this many homes. Right. But how do you use the word affordable when it's not affordable? You can't get through CEQA. CEQA takes years and years. And then you look at, the cost of equipment, materials. I mean, everything has tripled in about 3 years. So trying to fund that, and then they're like, all right, you have to go ahead and you have to build this. And I'm like, well, if we build it, say we put something into Laguna Niguel, who's paying for the infrastructure? Who's paying for the extra public safety that we need? Because you'd have more population, you're going to need more public safety. And a sheriff is about $500,000 a year, who's going to be paying to build new schools because we'll have more children coming in. Right. Well, that never seems to be the question. It's to put the cart before the horse. You have to have all of this in order to have housing. And so that's probably one of the most frustrating things is we can do this. And also with the RENA numbers, it's per city. And it really needs to be per region, because we can work with other cities that actually have land, but perhaps they don't have the funding. And then we have cities that have the funding, but they don't have the land. If they really want to have housing and affordable housing, this is what would work well, but they don't. They keep saying, nope, it's just for each individual city, which makes no sense. So they're called regional, it's regional housing. Why not make it regional for us to work together? And we know what works in our neighborhoods compared to somebody else. I wouldn't expect someone to do what we're going to do, in their area. They know what's best. And also it takes local control away. And that's one of the reasons why I came up to the state is I believe in local control. We do know what's best for our residents. Sitting on city council, I served on Orange County Transportation Authority for 3 years. I was chair for League of Cities up here on transportation, communication, and public works. I understand that we need to be able to give us the skills, give us what we need, the tools, but let us do it the way that works best in our area.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's something you don't hear a lot talked about here in the discussion of housing is I guess everything that goes with it, right? It's just not simple as just building a house or finding land to build it, but there's a lot of infrastructure and other things that need to be taken into account. It's point well taken. So it's very interesting. I mean, we all know the word affordable. I mean, we could take off a lot of regulations that aren't necessary and fees to be able to go down. The reason that, that it costs so much in this state is because of all the regulations and fees. It costs 3 times more to build a house in California than it does in Texas, and pretty much every other state. So that's how can you go ahead and build something that's going to cost $1 million and then make that affordable? Right. And who's going to want to actually build something? Because if they have to make affordable housing, they're not going to be able to, they're not going to be able to make any revenue whatsoever off it. Yeah, I think there was a report out yesterday that each affordable housing unit cost $1 million.
Yeah,
which is crazy.
That's the state.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's affordable house now, $1 million. Entry level, right?
Yeah, I was lucky. My husband and I bought a condo in the mid 90s when the recession was happening then for $144,000.
Yeah.
And I really don't understand it's going for $800 now. And I don't understand how anyone can afford, especially starting out being young, to go ahead and get a loan and have that type of payments. It's just not realistic.
No, definitely tough. So hopefully we can figure that out, or another recession hits, so housing becomes more affordable. So we'll see.
You know, and I think that's it, when we can figure it out. There are actually a lot of good solutions out there. They just have to be voted on.
Right. Well, hopefully you can come up with some and put them forward and solve this riddle.
I'm working.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for stopping by and telling us a little bit about yourself and things you're working on. And best of luck to you in these next 2 weeks. We'll see maybe later this year, and we can see how you've done.
Happy to keep you updated. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.